This is Father's Day 2020. It's for my two daughters, whom I couldn't be more proud of. I love them dearly. I admire their gifts and their abilities they've developed over the years. Abilities to relate and find compassion and empathy for those around them is simply amazing. And I hope that after this that they will stop and smile, mostly stop saying, "Daddy, we ain't got no daddy. He was hit by a train. Bluey, hit by the L&N." You got to stop saying that. Turns out when you're asked to which child is your favorite, apparently you're expected to pick one of your own. I know that now. I was reading about one father who wanted to get in on the Pinterest craze. He posted a picture of his baked beans popsicle and even encouraged people to follow him for more summer recipes. I'm signed up. One father's children were concerned that their dad wasn't getting enough exercise, and he assured them that he was. And he began to explain the routine that he was in. It was a low-tech and didn't require a lot of equipment. He said, "I begin by standing on a comfortable surface, plenty of room on each side." He says, "Then I take 2 5-pound potato bags, one in each hand. I extend my hand straight out and hold them there for as long as I can." Tries to hold them out for at least a minute. That's where he starts. Each day he tries to hold it out for just a little bit longer. And after a couple of weeks, he got up to the point where he had a 10-pound bag of potatoes, potato sack in each hand. Then he was up to a 50-pound bag, but he was nearly to 2 100-pound potato sacks in each hand. He says after he gets to that 100-pound bag and he's comfortable with that, then he's going to start to put potatoes in them. I read that a father had discovered that the leading cause of injuries in old men is them thinking that they're still young men. One of my father's favorite songs, Neil Diamond's "Sweet Caroline." I heard on the news recently that because of the coronavirus, "Sweet Caroline" is now banned from use until further notice, and that there would be no more touching hands, reaching out, touching me, or touching you. One father recalled that while he's not yet lost all of his marbles due to his raising children, he suspects that there might be a small hole in the bag. Recently, a father who had been coaching youth sports for a number of years suggested a way to stop the millennials and their children from this protesting craze that's going around. He said, simply hand out participation trophies so they feel good about themselves and they'll go home. Here's a segue now for dads, a little bit of cutting-edge humor that leans towards the intellectual. Here's one. An illusionist was going to make himself disappear on the count of 3. However, he began to count in Spanish. He went, "Uno, dos," and poof, he disappeared. One man in the audience was overheard saying he vanished without a trace. I read about a father who had recently hired by a company that was making bicycle wheels. Wanting to impress his friends, he boasted that he was now their spokesman. One father was pointing out the weekend project to his neighbor. He said, "I painted that house with my son." And the neighbor replied, "You should have used a brush." The father was having his driver's license renewed, and the worker behind the counter asked if he wanted to be an organ donor. He replied, "I'd like to, but I play guitar." One woman thought back many years how her father kept warning people that the Titanic would sink, and no one listened. Over and over he warned them, "The Titanic is going to sink." Finally, the people couldn't tolerate it anymore, and they asked him to leave the theater so they could enjoy the movie. Here's one that children never tire of hearing. There's a fine line between a numerator and a denominator, and followed by the only a fraction of people will understand this one. I don't really. Math ain't never been my strong suit. Grammar are. One father got a pair of New Balance sneakers with memory foam in it from his kids last Father's Day, but he's afraid to tell them that he still can't remember why he walks into rooms. Fathers have had a new challenge in the last few months trying to figure out what color masks go with their outfit. Common problem everywhere. For the family barbecue for the summer, The father wanted to be prepared for those pesky little wasps that come around. He went to the local hardware store and asked the cashier if the spray he chose was good for wasps, and she replied, "No, it kills them." The father was rather puzzled by a post-it on a local bulletin board. It was a picture of a white-tailed deer, beautiful deer. And the caption underneath read, "How can you eat these precious creatures?" He looked over at his son and said, "It's too bad they didn't leave a way I can contact them, because I have some pretty good recipes." The daughter was telling her mother about how she had issues with her father, so she started going to a therapist. And she was surprised at the end of the very first session when the therapist simply said, "Wow." One father declared to his son that when he saw the price on a bottle of Smart Water, he said, "If you're paying $3 for a bottle of Smart Water, it's not working." Another dad joke? You bet I got one. Where did Captain Hook get his hook from? A secondhand store. The father was talking to another father, and he said, "If I had $1 for every woman that found me unattractive before I got married, eventually they would have found me attractive." One father was going to raise bees with his children as a hobby, and he went to the pet store and he wanted to buy 12 bees. When the shopkeeper handed him a box, the father noted that there was one too many. The shopkeeper looked at him and says, "Oh, that's a freebie." Two fathers were talking. One said he was going to go to Africa, and the second one said, "Kenya?" To which he replied, "Yes, I can." One father wanted to come up with a new pun, but was stumped. He said, "I've been struggling to come up with a clever boxing pun, but I just can't come up with the punchline." Everybody loves Stephen Wright's humor, especially the one where he goes to the stereo store and buys a blank tape, takes it home, puts it in his stereo and turns it up full blast. A few minutes later, he gets a knock at the door. It was his neighbor complaining. His neighbor was a mime. One man, a father coincidentally, said he recently took a poll and found out that 100% of the people in the tent were angry when it collapsed. From time to time, I like to bring people into my house and show them my large collection of AC adapters that have outlived the products they were made for. I declare to them, those are going to be my children's one day. They're going to inherit them. Someone was admiring those vinyl figures on the back of an elderly man's car. They were rather strange looking. And he commented on how many that they were. He replied, "Oh, those aren't my family. Those are just a number of deer I've hit while I'm driving my car." One father was telling his children one day of how he met his mother. He says, "I was visiting the zoo, and there she was in her uniform. Straight away I knew she was a keeper." One father was telling about the neighborhood that he grew up in. He said it was pretty tough. One of his friends was asked in English class, "What comes at the end of a sentence?" His friend replied, "An appeal." Personally, my neighborhood was pretty tough. We bowled overhand. Actually, it was really tough. One of my friends was asked who shot Abraham Lincoln. He said he didn't know, but he was pretty sure he had an alibi for that night. Dad joke alert, here we go. What do you call a bulletproof Irishman? Rick O'Shea. One father was attending a band cert, one of his children, and he heard a trombone playing that familiar tune going, "Walk, walk, 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 walk." And he said, "Hey, isn't that Charlie Brown's teacher?" One child was telling about a conversation her mother and father were having recently, and the mother insisted that her father wear a mask in the house all the time, and she added she wanted to be a mask of Sean Connery. At the beginning of the school year, kindergarten teacher likes to get to know the children, a little bit about them. And so he's asking them what their fathers do. When it came time for little Jenny to tell about her dad, she says, "My dad is a magician." "A magician," the teacher said, somewhat surprised. "What's his best trick?" And Jenny said, "Sawing people in half." Wow! Wanting to know more about her family, she asked if she had any brothers or sisters. And Jenny says, "Yes, a half-brother and a half-sister." One father was told by the doctor that he needed to get more exercise, so he thought, "I'll join the gym." So he went in and talked to the trainer, and the trainer told him what days that he worked and that he recommended he wear loose-fitting clothes. And the dad said, "Between me and you, coach, if I had any loose-fitting clothes, I wouldn't be here." I overheard a dad say once, "When I was a kid, No, wait, I still do that. One father said, give a kid a Pop-Tart and they eat for a day. Teach a kid how to cook a Pop-Tart and you can sleep in every weekend. Bobby's dad told him it's hard to explain puns to a kleptomaniac. They always take things so literally. When I was 10, I could read 7 different languages. I had no idea what I was reading or what they meant, but I could read 7 languages. I was thinking about joining the Thesaurus Club, and I was doing a little bit of reading about it, and I discovered the first rule of Thesaurus Club: you don't talk about, mention, speak of, discuss, chinwag, natter, or chat about the Thesaurus Club. A first grade teacher called in the parents to talk to them. She wanted to talk about little Johnny. She says, Johnny is very artistic, but I often wonder if he pays attention to what I ask him to do. For instance, I read them a Dr. Seuss story and asked them to draw a picture of something they heard me talk about in the story. And when Johnny handed in the picture, it was a picture of an elephant in what appears to be a music concert. He says, can you explain this? And the father says, well, why don't we call in little Johnny and ask him? So the father asked what the story that she read. First of all, she says, it's Horton Hears a Who. And the father turns to Johnny when he comes in and asks him, he says, Johnny, what is this picture? And Johnny said, oh, I thought she says Horton Hears the Who. A butterfly gets pulled over by the police, and when he asks for his license, he shows it to him, but it's a picture of a worm. He says, oh, that's an old picture. I ate breakfast the other day at the Grammar Cafe. The waiter asked me if I wanted eggs over easy or eggs over easily. A man was telling about his vacation in Scotland. He says the most difficult part was figuring out which bathroom to use. That one killed me. I saw a picture of 3 turtles, and each one was yelling. And the caption above one little picture balloon above it, and one says, you're lazy. And another one said, you're annoying. And the other one said, stop ruining my life. Turns out it was a picture of snapping turtles. When I was in the 5th grade, my English teacher asked the kid next to me to name 2 pronouns. And he said, who, me? With all those eye rolls, it's only fitting that I should wrap this up with a couple of optometrist stories. Jenny Moskowitz told about her father going to the eye doctor. When the optometrist asked if he could read the 4th line, he said, read it, I know the guy. Another fellow goes to see the eye doctor, and when he couldn't read the chart, he asked if they had one in English. Another fellow asked if he could buy a vowel on his eye chart. Well, that's all. Happy Father's Day, and stop those eye rolls. I gotta go.